Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Glad to be back with you all live here. Yeah, did not get put on a jury, but it felt like a near thing there for a bit. I'm not going to lie to y'all, but back in the studio, back live, and back with new shows all of this week as anticipated. So however you're tuning in, chiming in, adding those 2 cents, like Ida Beza Gardner is over on the Facebook with the high and the wave as usual. Do appreciate that. And others dropping those likes and reacts among other things, such as Ida Beza Gardner and Angel Rueda, also with the rock on over there. Do appreciate that, as we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. There's nothing really going on in the news, is there? No, not really. Well, okay, no, that's never the case. Anyway, got a lot of stuff going on, of course, around the borderland, as is always the case, including an interesting view inside of the continuing county immigration response when it comes to, the whole immigration and border security situation that we talk about quite a lot, and how some of those programmatic differences can be seen, or at the very least what it does look like on kind of the inside of the response from our news partners at KFOX 14, as well as, the school year, the start of the school year again rolls on for some. And besides just the seeming whole lot more vehicles around town, like, someone tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it just seems like a whole lot more people around most areas. I mean, not all schools are back in, but we're getting closer to that year-round schedule. It seems like everyone is all of the sudden back in town. Tell me someone to have a different impression about that. So let's have a Bernadette Bandicole and Eric Von Holstein Rathlow with a Happy Taco Tuesday, and the Bernadette Bandicole with the hello, and John Browston commenting on some of those national things that, we're definitely going to have to talk about, as there's still information breaking on this as of right now. And, I don't really like to use the breaking news thing, but still like details coming out as of this moment. But sticking local, because we're still local, that I'll be damned if we're not going to be. We do have City Council introducing a no new revenue tax rate, which could mean that actually, technically, it could be a lower rate, but it'll be one that'll still overall cost you about the same. On average, your mileage may definitely vary, as we also have Willie Jenkins, hey you guys, and Renato Rivera also chiming in, and a whole lot more things coming in there, as well as, of course, as we are in that week, some of the things that are already being announced and coming up, including remembrances and other stories about it that we'll be talking about in the lead up to the commemoration of August 3rd in this community. Also, a couple more examples of just bad times and bad ideas of being on the mountain or any regional mountains, stuff like that. So there's a lot to talk about locally here. Don't worry about that, but we'll do our level best to cover all of that, and of course the major subjects going on, and of course affecting us, or at the very least huge discussions going to be happening, I am sure. Because, yes, and the comments are reflecting this as well, the announcement, as confirmed by the former president, of the federal indictment against him for, what's the actual title of the document here? As it is entitled from the Justice Department on technically 4 counts of conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstructing of and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. And so, as more details of the actual indictment, 45 pages of it have come out here, and we'll certainly be talking about that. But we got, again, a lot of local stuff, and I'll be damned if if there's a hill I'm going to die on, it's going to be that one. And also other things going on, like Eric Von Holstein Rathlow mentioning Rip Pee Wee Herman, the actor, who I could never remember his name of, except for when I actually end up looking it up there, Paul Rubens. There we go. Of course, Yeah, is passing as well. I mean, a lot of stuff going on, and you miss a day, you miss a lot. So it used to be someone's slogan around town, but there's a lot of things going on. So let's delve into, of course, the local things as we get right off the bat here. That, again, interesting interview and look into from our news partners at KFOX 14. Part of their story yesterday by Jonathan Mejia. There's an article titled there, El Paso continues to manage migrant legal influx despite potential crisis resurgence. Now, of course, there's a bunch of things that we have pretty regularly discussed on here, including some of the stats that can be seen over on the cities side of it. elpasotexas.gov/migrant-crisis, the Migrant Situational Awareness Dashboard, showing that, yeah, there are still a level. I mean, it's been at a relatively low level, about half, give or take, plus or minus a few percentages, half of even the most recent high water mark of about 1,500 that the CBP reported as their 7-day rolling average of encounters, which was about 3/4 as much as the previous time. That one happening at the the end of Title 42 date earlier this year, and the previous one towards the end of last year. So there's still a response that is, of course, being mounted. And so our news partners at KFOX 14 delving into that a whole lot further, including, I mean, something that has been brought up basically by our comments. It's starting out to the naked eye. It may seem that the migrant crisis that El Paso saw in May is over. However, El Paso is still seeing migrants enter the country. Now, only they're doing it legally through the CBP One app. And this is something that we have certainly talked about in the past, that sure, there has been a significant change. I mean, we're not seeing the same, I mean, lower levels, but not necessarily the same levels of situation. It's never completely over at any given point. There's been at least one caller that has argued that there's always been this, but the level to which it's at, it's kind of like arguing the difference between, a slight downpour and a typhoon. But point is that there are different levels, and the response does continue on. And in this case, they're still going on in the county. Specifically, they spoke with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, saying that they are still operating at full capacity on the county's efforts because, I mean, there's that processing center, Salvation Army specifically. And one thing that El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego says is, quote, one of the commitments that we made as a county was to make sure we scaled down, but we're not going to shut down anything. So the response is certainly different than it was, again, at the level. But he also says this very importantly, as one line that has often been brought up, quote, we learned our lesson because things can happen quickly. There could be something in the court and all of a sudden you're back up. And saying they're seeing between 85 to 100 migrants a day at the processing center, and they are chartering buses once a week, or at least they're chartering transportation. I guess it doesn't say explicitly how much, once a week to Dallas or Houston, though it's done in coordination with operations, NGOs, or other officials in those cities as well. So that's an interesting one. Another thing that they actually, again, our news partners at KFOX 14 going inside Sacred Heart Church to see how things are progressing there. Still one of the major nonprofit response points to this, along with, of course, the whole other microcosm, what I refer to as the Annunciation House microcosm of organizations in town, because it kind of revolves around that. I would still argue, at the very least, it's the simple way that I end up putting it. A lot of different organizations involved, both in the boots on the ground, so to speak, the active response, or in the advocacy, publicity, those kind of parts of the whole situation. And what they're seeing is that Sacred Heart has been at or above capacity for the last month and a half, which is very interesting, with 70% being Venezuelans and about 98% of those having entered the country with the CBP One app. So that has been pretty much the sea change, I would argue. And I think that bears out with a lot of the facts and details about this, that change on the back end, and particularly the policies the administration has put in, has been the reason we've seen a big difference, if only just on the streets in El Paso, but if not out of sight, out of mind, can happen for a lot of things and a lot of people. Not done, not over, and certainly nothing going on with the whole subject. But whether you consider that a good movement or of a whitewashing of the situation, I know some people have been arguing that. One of the major issues that comes up with this is certainly also the back-end policies that support it, because it's not just the CBP One app, though there had been, of course, increasing administration focus. I remember talking about at the start of the year when we saw the national visit by President Biden and facets of the administration to our area, that I would I was surprised that was going to happen if it didn't also end up coming along with major policy changes. If you're just viewing or reviewing the situation and say, well, we will take action, you don't go to a major area, right? You go to some offshoot, some other place, something where there isn't already a demonstrable response in place. And so doing that, the part of the policy that came out at that point in time was, of course, the refocus on the CBP1 app and saying that there is not going to be any possibility of entry services, et cetera, without the use of that. And so one of those cornerstone policies that we've been talking about, and there's more response coming into our newsroom about, including from, say, some of those other organizations, such as the Hope Border Institute, who we've previously had on the show, talking about their expectations on this, that, with that federal court decision out of, was it California? No, I'm dubious on that part, but they have the full expectation, which I will agree with, quoting directly from their email out today. Yes, a little bit earlier today on that, where they're saying, quote, "We expect that this will turn into a lengthy legal challenge." As further note here, there was, of course, the decision made to overturn the policy that was about essentially a restriction on asylum, saying that they did not enter through this process, they would be unable to claim it. And with, again, that federal judge, Judge Tigar, Tigar, saying that this is not supported by, or specifically, quote, contrary to law. And so that being kind of one of the cornerstones of the entire administration response, I would say that, well, okay, there was also the 2-week stay that was put into place, so it's not immediately overturned, but further argumentation, again, nonprofit communities and those in the advocacy space on this, fully expecting to, again, quote, "We expect that this will turn into a lengthy legal challenge that will move through the court system in the coming year, potentially making it to the Supreme Court." That about is in line with my analysis and my expectation with the situation there at all. So, yeah, we'll see how that continues to affect us here in the borderland. But again, some idea of lessons learned is an interesting way to put it. Let's just say it like that. But of course, a lot of other stuff rolling on, including the back to school continuing on, and another interesting one from our news partners at KFOX 14, that the El Paso Police Department focusing on specifically their response to potential active shooter situations. And it looks like it's not maybe an accessible one, but specifically they were looking at the use of a MILO range, MILO. That is one of those simulated, it's the kind of thing where there's a screen and then it reacts to, it, changes based on your reactions of it. And so it's an interesting way. It's about $100,000 invested into that program that tests you on forced, with the decision to or not to pull the trigger in the way. And so I've said this previously. I don't know if it's entirely possible or if there's any way to do this. Would be very interested in going through that kind of a simulation myself, honestly, to see the difficulty. I mean, particularly in that situation where there may not be even an outside perpetrator, but someone who is a part of the school population, knowing and the difficulty of that cannot be an easy one. But that's just a couple of things going on. So yeah, that's part of the reason seeing all the traffic back on the roads now. Of course, a whole lot of what is going on with the back to school situation, but a whole lot more going on here in the city of El Paso as well. And speaking of specifically the city of El Paso, a no new revenue tax rate, which is an interesting one. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more, including, of course, some of the things coming up for August 3rd. So let's take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more talk about the things going on and impacting us here in the borderland. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Yes, back live in the studio. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Did my civic duty, and hopefully they'll take me off those. I swear we're getting called every 6 months lately. But in any case, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Lots of stop-and-go traffic on the I-10 eastbound from Vinton down to Red is a 24-minute delay. Lots of stop-and-go traffic for that 7-mile portion. And westbound on the 10 from Trans Mountain up to Vinton, 8-minute delays due to road construction. And a couple of cleared crashes, I-10 eastbound at Americas Avenue in the Lower Valley. And a crash is cleared at Joe Battle northbound at Pelicano. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online. Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Foo Fighters,
Fall Out Boy,
Kelly Clarkson,
King Brown,
Lil Wayne,
Lenny Kravitz,
Miguel,
Public Enemy,
Sheryl Crow,
Travis Scott,
Tim McGraw,
TLC.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Get your tickets now.
For 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
AXS.com.
There are more identity threats than you realize. Even if you monitor your credit, only a little personal info needs to leak out, like your social security number or password,
for you to become a victim.
LifeLock alerts you to threats you could miss. If your identity is stolen, a dedicated US-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year with promo code NEWS. Go to lifelock.com.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot of things going on, whole lot of things we're talking about, a whole lot still going on in the borderland, and yes, the comments are afire with some of the things going on nationally that we of course did reference, but we'll talk about a little bit more. But I'll be damned if I'm not going to keep up the local aspect of the show up until it's untenable anymore, which of course we have done in the past. But a whole lot of things going on that, again, as we're starting off the week a little bit delayed from what we usually would do after, I had jury duty. No, I did not get in panel, but yes, it took most of the day and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's why we had the contingency in place that we ended up just going with, because you ever have one of those situations where you don't actually end up doing anything, but you're so like on edge and tense for it and ready for it that you end up feeling exhausted by the end of the day anyway? Yeah, that's a good summation of yesterday. Whole lot of hurry up and wait, and then go to other places to wait, and then do some aggressive waiting in those places. Anyway, have to be back in the studio with you all today, and hopefully I stopped getting called. It was actually looking back on it. It's been about every 6 months, but the previous times it has been that panel was then canceled, and so I don't end up actually serving on it, so I go right back in the pool, is my understanding. So fun if you're into that kind of thing. I'm not saying I would be unhappy or opposed to being on a jury, maybe not in the current kind of circumstance of what I do here, but it would be an interesting one. And seeing some of the things, understanding it ended up being a county court at law number 3, looking like it was a civil case. It was a civil case. Didn't get many facts of the case because you're not supposed to tell the jury that, to my understanding, but ended up being a lot of it came out in the way they were asking questions and some just explicit things stated, which were fascinating if I'm not supposed to I wasn't put under any kind of gag order or anything, so I think I'm fine to talk about it. If not, I'm sure I'll have a judge talking to me here before too long, and Mondo Mangana saying, just don't send anyone to the electric chair. Yeah, that's a do we do that in Texas currently? I know we've had a whole situation over the supplies for lethal injections. I feel like we'd probably go back to the gas chamber before that, if only because I think some were modified into that. I don't know. That's not one of my major focus areas on what Texas has done. Though I know in some states the firing squad has been discussed. So, yeah, not exactly. And other conversations going on in our comments as well, including about direct conversations about mayoral elections and the possibility of upcoming policies, which is interesting to me. But in any case, getting back to some of the things going on directly in the borderland, including the city of El Paso now directly considering a no new revenue tax rate. Now, as much as taxes and everything going on to them has certainly been more than a bit of conversation, is that we certainly have had a lot of, okay, but what's going on with then the appraisal rates? I was fortunate-ish enough to make it so that I kept it flat for me for this, I guess, coming year. But there's a lot of whom it hasn't if you didn't go through the appraisal contestation process, of which certainly is at least worth a look if you get the chance to do so. But when it comes to that, even if city council had, and as other entities have, decided to just keep the tax rates flat, if the property values have gone up, it still ends up paying more, because if you're getting the same percentage on an increased value, that ends up being more at the end of it. So, looking at an actual no new revenue tax rate, of course, this is something that has previously been done by some of our regional governments. The county of El Paso, back in the 2020 or 2021, I'll have to go back and look at the exact records, did the similar kind of thing, saying, okay, we have certain operations and things going on, but given the burden that's going on also to the average person, we don't want to increase things. We don't want to make things anything more impactful. So they kept it that there would be the same amount of money coming into that entity, but they would therefore have to adjust rates upwards or downwards. And in that case, back then, a couple of years ago, at very least, it was an actual technical reduction in the tax rate. But again, given the increases in property values that have gone up about 15 to 17% over recent years, it was still, the same amount. And now the city considering the same type of thing with some very interesting further details in there, including some debt machinations that may or may not work out better for it. So this was the no new revenue tax rate considered by City Council in their work meeting yesterday, and they are proposing to not increase property taxes, specifically according to a release sent out by the city, while still meeting the needs of the community. So also specifically from the interim city manager, Carrie Weston, is also done by Chief Financial Officer Robert Cortinas as part of the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2024. It would increase the number of police officers and firefighters through multiple training academies, 3 police academies and 2 fire academies, retain existing officers and firefighters through competitive compensation. Of course, there was that agreement made with the primarily police unit at the end of last year. Also allocate funds for facility improvements and repairs, earmark funds to replace vehicle and machinery equipment. You can see the full span and all of the half dozen, give or take, bullet points that are on there, all with our news partners at KFOX 14, including continuing an additional $6.4 million for PAYGO funding for street resurfacing projects. Yeah, that's the one that I know people have brought up. And so specifically the way, and you might think, okay, but they're keeping it the same. Are they just budgeting better? Kind of, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. In the statement released by, again, interim city manager Weston, quote, this fiscal year, we have achieved a $37.6 million budget surplus that we'll use to invest in our community without having to issue more debt. Use the current fiscal year surplus to pay off the entire remaining principal for the Transportation Reinvestment Zone, the TRZ, number 2, which will save the city $20 million in additional costs and provide $8 million for additional annual recurrence revenue for our general fund for this upcoming fiscal year and future years. So it is kind of a budgeting thing. You pay off a loan early, and as long as they're, personally, you might run into those early repayment penalties, but I guess once you start talking about millions, they just want the money, or at the very least is not that important. And all really doing is, Robert Cortinas is still with the city, even though I know there's been some questions around that, particularly in some of the, more the auditor things. I want to say it that way. But, Robert Cortinas is still with the city. And so there are a few things. This is not a done deal. There are a lot more steps that come with this. There's going to be a public hearing on the next fiscal year budgets on August 14th, and then the actual adoption for the fiscal year 2024 budget and tax rate will happen on August 15th, so a couple of weeks from now, and then September 1st is when the city's new fiscal year begins. So that new tax rate, to my understanding, and some of the other advocates and watchdogs talking about this, saying that this means that they could not consider a rate above the current one. They could even potentially lower it further if they find any more, tax tricks or things that could be done to modify things. But this is pretty much the situation, the way it's going to be, at the expectation anyway, so far. One other thing I want to mention before you end up getting into that next break, and yes, talking about more of the local stuff, and then of course some of those very pressing national issues, is that the Blue Flame building in downtown El Paso will be lit to honor victims of the August 3rd shooting. Of course, on August 3rd, will pulse 23 times Thursday, which is August 3rd, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. To symbolize those that directly lost their lives in the incident or the immediate aftermath of it. So that's one of the things that'll be going on. Not sure if the Star on the Mountain will be doing a similar type of thing. I have a full expectation that it will. And it is also noted by our news partners, El Paso's Star on the Mountain shines bright again after vandalism incident. And actually, there was apparently a second vandalism incident in July. I know we talked mainly about one, but that there was even more with it. Yeah, that is just so dumb. You think that it's just going to go up and take a souvenir? That's like why they have to do the things they do at, say, Carlsbad Caverns now, because people just thought, oh, yeah, no, I'll just go take a little stalactite home. It's fine. It only took several 100,000 years to form. I'm sure that if I take it, no one else will. It'll be fine. It's just dumb reasoning. There is not reasoning, I would even argue, behind it. So there was early in July, there were 6 arrests of people in separate incidents for trespassing on or near it. And of course, the more recent one, and still looking for in the more recent one, there has been the release of some of the video, particularly to Crime Stoppers, and 2 suspects were caught on camera actually in that, but it is on and is shining brightly. And just related to that, just don't be doing stuff in the mountains after dark. There's not a whole lot of good justification for, particularly if you're off trail, as was also noted that, former news partners at KFOX 14, 4 hikers suffering from heat exhaustion, dehydration rescued from the Oregon mountains, which did extend into the nighttime hours. 2 hikers treated for dehydration, 1 taken to the hospital for further medical care. The mountain rescue taking about 8 hours to compete. Listen, the only reasonable way I've ever found it to go hiking into the mountains is if you do it like early, like dawn hours, particularly in this heat. If you're not down by the time the sun is already getting high in the sky, you have messed up and you are not going to be happy about it. Let's put it that way. And also, just one further note, that the ramps on I-10 and I-25 still closed with the repairs up there in the next to the City of the Cross, is expected to take at least the better part of a month, maybe a little bit later in the month, but no explicit date has been set yet. And the repairs itself, including to the roadway and then to the bridge structures, respectively, about $30,000 and then up to about, just less than $1 million. So, yeah, that's not a fun one, and so don't expect to be using that part of the interchange up in the City of the Crosses. But let's take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we do have some more local and statewide things to talk about, and then, of course, some of those pressing national issues, but we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Vanya Castillo with your CBS 4 headlines. Special traffic investigators responded to a motorcycle crash early this morning. This happened on Fred Wilson and Chafee Ramp. Here's what we know. It was a single motorcycle collision and 1 person was taken to UMC with serious injuries. Over in Las Cruces, police there continue their investigation into a deadly motorcycle crash. It happened yesterday afternoon on University Avenue near I-25. Police haven't released many details, but say it appears that it was a single vehicle crash. And a gut-wrenching scene out of West El Paso. 9 people in the hospital, including 7 undocumented migrants, after a pursuit that led to a crash. It happened just before 1 Monday morning. We did see video from South Desert Boulevard and Red Road. And again, there was a closure in that area for quite a while now. Here's what we know. 3 vehicles were involved. A driver along with 6 undocumented migrants were all in one vehicle and had to be taken to the hospital. The driver of a second vehicle, their passenger and a child were also hurt. A 10th person was also injured but did not go to the hospital.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Lots of stop and go traffic on the I-10 eastbound from Vinton down through Red is a 24-minute delay. Lots of stop and go traffic for that 7-mile portion. And westbound on the 10 from Trans Mountain up to Vinton, 8-minute delays due to road construction. And a couple of cleared crashes, I-10 eastbound at Americas Avenue in the Lower Valley. And a crash is cleared at Joe Battle northbound at Pelicano. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Temperatures for your Wednesday on the hotter side, once again around 101. Still a 20% chance of a storm tomorrow. Then we start to dry things out a little more. Partly cloudy, only a 10% chance of a storm for your Thursday. Hotter as well, high 103. Then we go back to weather warned for our Friday. Partly cloudy skies, 10% chance of a storm, high 106 on Friday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Off.
This is Protection. Yep, Protection. The everyday skin protection ritual that protects your skin from mosquitoes. Prevention is the best protection. Off, the #1 dermatologist recommended repellent brand, SC Johnson.
I'm back to doing what I love and more. Thanks to the Good Feet store.
This planet is so incredibly beautiful that I can't get enough of it. I did 950 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail, and Good Feet was with me all the way.
Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet Store. Are you ready for summer adventures? Don't let your feet get in the way. Learn how the Good Feet Store can help.
Your passion's important, but if your body aches and if your heel feels like you've got a nail stuck in it and won't come out, trust me, it's going to wear you down. The Good Feet Store knew what they were talking about and took the time to really dial in what I needed. I hiked 84 miles in the Himalaya and to do it pain-free. You think I'm not grateful for Good Feet?
You deserve comfort in your life too. Sandal season is here and Good Feet fits into all your summer shoes, even flip-flops. Visit the Good Feet store today for your free fitting and test walk.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Schedule your appointment today at goodfeet.com.
Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match. This report is sponsored by Discover.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversations, a lot of things being discussed over there in the comments, particularly. And so if you want to add your 2 cents, one of the better ways to do so, including it's an interesting side conversation, particularly on the YouTube, like Tritosac saying that I want our leaders to impose harsh penalties on dog owners who let their dogs loose. I want them fined and put in jail. Someone is attacked as a result of their irresponsibility. There have been incidents that I'm aware of, even some that I've done coverage on in the past, of where I know that you're primarily like out Horizon way, some of the more sparse areas of the county, if I'm not mistaken. Trito, let me know. But that even in the city of El Paso, there's one incident I'm aware of, probably 5, not quite 10 years ago, where it was a couple of dogs that someone had got in someone else's yard and unalived the ones that were in the yard. They were bigger dogs that came in and smaller dogs in the yard. And in this case, it was actually caught on grainy surveillance video. Went out to talk to the homeowner and the dog owner in that case, and definitely one dog was unalived, and I do believe the other one may have had significant health issues, if not having to be put down. So in that case, what my understanding of essentially the law is that the dogs are treated as property. So as much as there was compensatory damages being sought here, wouldn't have gone beyond anything about pain and suffering or potentially emotional distress, things like that. And particularly for then the owner of the other dogs, the ones that came into the yard, it would have been a basically a negligence, if anything. So yeah, it's a complicated one, which is why one of the things of the previous district attorney's administration, the idea of animal cruelty, of which I would argue that could be a subset, particularly if you're not, maintaining or dealing with. We talk about, a dog left chained up in a yard as being a bad thing in animal cruelty, but also leaving one to cause destruction, even if you're going to go along with that. Also, that's cruel in a different way. So that was one of the things talked about in the previous ones, but kind of fell by the wayside and hasn't necessarily been as much of a focus, at least not one that we focused on as much from the current district attorney, Bill Hicks. But we'll see. We've got some also bigger fish to fry. And also locally on that, Eric Von Holstein-Rathlow saying, I guess these hikers have never heard of a flashlight. But listen, that's frankly part of the problem. And I'm not saying that, there's not enough people out there with flashlights, but thinking that you're always going to be able to find your way back with a flashlight. Okay, there's differences of hiking in our region than, say, back east, Pacific Northwest, anything like that, where usually the trail is a well-defined path with like grass or vegetation on either side. Like, sure, we've got vegetation, but like the ground cover is definitely different. We don't have it being always that there's grass, and in, twilight or darker, it can be real easy to lose what is essentially a different color of dirt trail than it is the actual one. So people thinking that, it's getting dark, it's fine. If you're hiking anywhere near dark and you don't know exactly, and even then I would recommend against this still, going up and still being hiking is a super bad idea. That's why, most of the rescues we have happen at night, and the people will have flashlights, and it's deceiving. Because you may think that, this, particularly if you're hiking in the Franklin Mountains, you're surrounded by the city, right? And you can see the city lights thinking, I'll just find my way back, not realizing or thinking about the vertical changes that happen along with that, and the fact that a wrong turn can leave you off a cliff, essentially. So just having a flashlight is not sufficient. It's a bad idea to be on the mountain after dark. I'll just put it that way here. So, of course, some of the breaking news that we do have to talk. Well, let's talk about the state here for just a second, because we haven't talked too much about all of that. A couple of interesting ones from the Texas Tribune, including their review of what is going to be coming up on the November ballot now here in Texas. Yes, this year, as there's going to have to be voter decisions, some constitutional amendments, part of the whole property tax cut package that was finally passed by the state legislature. And of course, one of the other major ones, not getting close to about a month out of it now, of specifically the articles of impeachment against embattled Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, with his lawyers now actually seeking to, as of yesterday, dismiss 19 of the 20 articles of impeachment. So some offense already being played, I guess you could argue there. Specifically, also, they're looking to disqualify some of the jury. It's not quite the right term, but specifically looking at 3 of the Democrat state senators looking to get rid of them, as also, RJ saying a flashlight isn't the sun, it is a poor substitute. I don't care if you got a nice 1,000 lumen thing like I try to make sure I have, it's still not good enough on the trail. So let's, of course, address some of the breaking news that has been taking over the comments pretty much this whole time. From our national news partners, the latest information out that there has been now an indictment passed down to former President Donald Trump over the 2021 Capitol riot. So some of these basic facts that you've, of course, been hearing some from our national news partners, but more information is developing. Former President Trump has been indicted for election interference that culminated with the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. Prosecutors say his efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election contributed to the riot. And of course, Trump is expected to be arraigned in the case Thursday, is the expectation. They're going to be happening in Obama-appointed Judge Tanya Chutkan's courts assigned to the case. Does note that this is the second time that the Department of Justice has indicted Trump, the first coming from the handling of the classified documents that has been seeing its own updates and some other things there. This was also, of course, the information, or at least partially in part, confirmed by the former president ahead of that, putting out some information on his own social, including, of course, Truth Social. Tweet isn't the right phrase in that case, but his post. Let's just go with post here. I hear that deranged Jack Smith, in order to interfere with the presidential election of 2024, will be putting out yet another fake indictment of your favorite president, me, at 5 p.m. Why didn't they do this 2.5 years ago? Why did they wait so long? Because they waited to put it out right in the middle of my campaign. Prosecutorial misconduct, as the direct quote from that, again, on Truth Social, I guess, is the way to put it there. So that's, I guess, the expected narrative to come from the former president on this. And also a few other interesting ones, I do have to say. So again, the charges, as I mentioned at the start of the show there, from the first page of the indictment, of which various copies of the whole 45 pages have now begun to circulate online. The count 1, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And count 4, conspiracy against rights. So I've been reading through some of it as some of these postings were coming in the minutes before we got on air, including a mentioning of actions and talk about some unindicted co-conspirators, like co-conspirator number 1, etc. So been looking at some of the analysis and reading some of it that I've been able to in the midst of talking about what we have going on, of course, in our local area. But it's interesting. One of the interesting ones and bits of analysis outside of the indictment itself that's been noted is that it does not include an insurrection or like a treason charge as part of it. So while January 6th is very much in the spotlight, both with this indictment and with the things around it, it's not quite sure it actually meets or goes along with some of the things that's, well, we've talked about on these airwaves previously, including the idea of him not taking action enough. I mean, the replacement electors part of this, that's definitely a part of the indictment itself, but actual actions on the day of, or rather what's the way there's been one source site here, I might not be able to find it offhand at the moment, but about essentially benefiting from the chaos on January 6th has been one thing that has been put for us. So I'll see if I can find that specific sighting here, but let's go ahead and take that next break right now. And as we usually do at this point during the show, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines. Now, I understand this is big national news and one that has been anticipated to a certain extent, though we are still going to want to talk about. If you got anything you want to say on the local, please do so, but we'll take those phone lines and we'll take those phone calls and open those phone lines now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A lot of stop-and-go traffic on the I-10 east and westbound this afternoon in the Upper Valley between Vinton and Red. Eastbound on the 10, it's a half-hour delay. Stop-and-go traffic westbound side of I-10 from Trans Mountain up to Vinton, it's a 15-minute delay. A crash reported just north of downtown at Mesa and Wyoming, and that earlier crash on westbound Pelicano at Joe Battle is in the clearing stage. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by STEM. When you see a roach over there, you want it gone. Ew. Fast. STEM's bug killer trigger is powered by active ingredients found in plants and kills roaches faster than Zevo's bug killer trigger based on lab testing on the most common U.S. cockroach species. STEM, rooted in nature, optimized by science.
If you're suffering and there's a safe, natural, easy-to-use solution to help make you feel better, wouldn't you at least want to try it? That's why millions of people use Navage nasal care to help relieve their symptoms of sinus congestion, allergies, snoring, and other nasal-related problems. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage to make cleaning your nose easy. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping flush out everything that makes you miserable. Nearly 4 million people use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. People like Dee, a verified Navage user who writes, "From years of having a permanently stuffed up nose to being able to breathe is life-changing. Food tastes better, and I no longer go through boxes of tissue a day," unquote. Navage is the safe, drug-free solution you've been looking for. Available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Target, and Navage.com. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversation, a lot of different things and different things being discussed in those comments here, but a lot of them for the last, most of the show, let's be honest with you, has been about the issues going on and things surrounding this, that national news about the January 6th related indictment for the former president, which of course, yes, is huge national news, but again, if there's a hill I'm going to die on, it's talking about the local stuff as much as is possible. And while this is going to send shockwaves through the election, the other things, I just want to put one point out there, just one tweet that I was looking at right before the break here from Time magazine, actually. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump indicted for the third time. These indictments can't stop him from being elected president again, which is an interesting point, subtitled, There's no constitutional bar on a felon running from office, cited from Richard Hansen, election law professor at UCLA Law School. So, I mean, sure, January 6th was an incredibly important incident, and one that, there's a lot of anyone just saying, yeah, now that happened, let's just move on, is not reasonable to me. But that the things going on around it, and successful as they are, is the primary focus, at least in the reading I've done limited so far, of the indictment itself here, which I do believe the AP has posted up. I'll see if we can get a link to that one specifically here in a minute or two. Because it's worth reading, as this can be one of the major focuses. I mean, I would argue this one is potentially further reaching in terms of consequences, potentially, for the former president and any of those involved than, say, the previous federal indictments on the maintenance of records. I mean, those are impactful in their own right, but I would say this one is probably farther, if not, again, anyone interested in the wanting to not have the former president as part of public life anymore, I don't know if this is going to do it for you, because as we've seen previously, and I would fully expect again, given the nature of essentially the former president thrives on controversy, right? Like, that's part of his MO. He's never been everyone has to like me kind of guy. And I think that's a pretty fair understatement, actually. And so if this is just going to do away with him, I don't think that's going to meet your standard. Anyway, in any case, we do have callers on the line here, and we do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, hey, Andrew, I don't know if it's going to do away with him or not either, because, the Republican Party has turned into a cult, a personality cult. You got to be in a cult when your guy is been impeached 2 times, was found guilty of digitally raping a woman, has been accused by 24 other women of sexual assault, has bragged about his bromance with Putin, Vladimir Putin, who hacked our election. So when you're willing to support somebody like that, you're in a cult. There's no amount of information. There's no amount of indictments that will change your mind. But you know what's going to change some people's minds is the trials. Because there's where we're going to get the opportunity to have all the evidence presented, the 800,000 documents that the prosecution presented to Trump's lawyers, which includes over 1,200 100 testimonial witnesses, everybody around Trump, his inner circle, now it's disappointing that if they're not going to charge him on the January 6th thing, it's because probably they got so many other things that they're going to get him on that it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's a little hard to prove. But the bottom line is that he waited 3 hours to do anything while the Capitol Police were being assaulted, while 140 officers suffered 1,000 attacks on their persons, okay? And 5 people ended up dying. He planned that. He invited the people there. He said he was going to lead them to the Capitol. And then when it didn't happen, he got mad and had a fit and supposedly lunged at one of the Secret Service agents, all of whom, by the way, been interviewed also. So this is the worst guy we've ever had, and he affected El Paso. His rhetoric got 23 people killed here, and he ripped off our community of $500,000. He is the worst thing I've ever seen in the White House, and how anybody can support him is only if they are part of his cult.
If you ever read anything about cult deprogramming, I wouldn't expect that you necessarily have, not a requirement anyway, not part of our syllabus. Should we come up with a syllabus? Maybe, or like a suggested reading for something like this. In any case, a lot of them end up saying that shouting at someone, hey, you're part of a cult, and therefore it's bad. It's not usually the way you end up going about it. Same kind of thing with like changing people's minds. So good luck with that whole line of reasoning on here, because I think it is still a misunderstanding of, well, this guy's so bad, why do you like him? If that's the continuing on of it, is a misunderstanding of the support network that existed around and continues, of course, to do around the former president. So if you do want to see him go away, and again, I agree with you on the idea that this will not necessarily do it. I mean, it's trying to add on, it's the same kind of pressure that has been applied previously, I mean, during the impeachments and other things, and yet he's still, of course, leading the Republican polls. And I am going to call this shot right now. Expect that he's going to see some fundraising, some very good fundraising numbers off of this, because again, the former president thrives on controversy. That I don't think anyone can really argue that point. Anyone who's ever been on a reality show is not there just because they just want everyone to sing Kumbaya. Let's put it that way. So that is much to say, we'll see what comes out of this. And I will also agree with you that being directly on January 6th, or his response or lack thereof, which I do believe is the standing lunch bet we have. So I don't know if this really satisfies that, to be perfectly honest with you, because honestly, I mean, talking about this, and then there's the argument about, particularly, I would call it primarily count number 3, the obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, that may be the rhetoric part of it, and because I know there are some things that are referenced within the document itself about like the speech of the ellipse and we're going to go march up to the Capitol, those kind of things being referenced in it. But okay, I haven't been able to go through all 45 pages in the few minutes that we had before the show here, and so my look into my reading of it is that, again, the words do matter, and what people do say cannot be said, oh no, I didn't really mean that. That's particularly when you're talking about the size of an audience, ends up being a pretty weak sauce argument. But, well, I really don't know if that's part of those charges here, so I'll have to look further into it. So do appreciate the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now because we're right at the top of the hour. And yes, this is still the local show. I'm getting some flack in the comments about that, but this is one of those things that's pretty hard to ignore, particularly since it's coming out right before the show happens. So we're going to take that break right now. Coming out of this break, more talk about the things going on and affecting us here in the borderland. Those phone lines open and available right now. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No crashes on your El Paso freeway. Slow traffic, though, on the I-10 eastbound from Vincent to Red. It's a 17-minute delay, mostly stop-and-go traffic due to lane restrictions and road conditions on the I-10 westbound side. Pretty slow, too. 6-minute delays, Trans Mountain up to Vinton. A stalled semi in the right lane on Gateway North at Fred Wilson, and a stalled vehicles blocking the right lane on the 54 Patriot northbound at Montana. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Globally, 1 in 3 women experience domestic or sexual violence in their lifetime. In the U.S., on average, more than 3 women a day are murdered by their
News on
husbands
the
or
hour
boyfriends.
and a
You
half.
don't need to be an
Traffic
expert
and
to
weather
know
all
someone who's
day.
experienced
News Radio
domestic or
690 is
dating
KTSM
violence.
AM El Paso, an iHeart radio
And offer
station.
to help them find support services. Go to knowmore.org to learn more and contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for help. or call 911 in an emergency.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Former President Trump has been indicted for election interference that culminated with the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. Prosecutors say his efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election contributed to the riot. Trump's expected to be arraigned in the case on Thursday. This marks the second time the Department of Justice has indicted Trump, the first coming in the case involving his handling of classified documents. The alleged Gilgo Beach murder suspect is scheduled to appear in court again on September 27th. After today's appearance, Liz Warner has more.
Suffolk County DA Ray Tierney spoke to reporters outside the Long Island courthouse where multiple murder suspect Rex Heuermann appeared for a pretrial hearing. He said subsequent to Heuermann's arraignment, information will be provided on a rolling basis.
This is a 13-year case, so as you saw, we have a great deal of information, evidence, photographs, reports to provide to the defense counsel. We've begun that process.
Heuermann is being held without bail after pleading not guilty to charges connected to the murders of 3 women whose bodies were found in the area of Gilgo Beach more than a decade ago.
More high temperatures are in store across the southern U.S. this week. Tens of millions of Americans remain under heat alerts, particularly in states like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. 3 more people have been federally charged in Texas in connection to a deadly smuggling event that happened back in March. They kidnapped a group of illegal immigrants and held them hostage in Houston hotel rooms.
The hostage takers were sending videos of the vicious beatings to the victims' families to get ransom payments.
FBI Houston Special Agent in charge James Smith says 2 of the hostages were released. Law enforcement conducted an operation to rescue the remaining victim. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Today is a major rent deadline for tenants across Los Angeles. With eviction protections lifted, tenants like this woman must pay back rent owed for the first 18 months of the pandemic.
I don't even get $1,000 a month income. So trying to pay rent, utility bills, household goods, not enough money.
Rent owed between March of 2020 and September of 2021 is due today. Rent owed between October of 2021 and January 31st of this year will be due in February of 2024. Mayor Karen Bass says the city is also trying to protect landlords from going into foreclosure. Finding quality health care at a good price should be a priority for everyone in the U.S., but it's not so easy. Erin Real reports.
The states with the overall best health care, according to a recent study by Wallet Hub, are Minnesota, Iowa, Rhode Island, North Dakota, and Utah. The 5 worst states for health care: Louisiana, Alabama, Alaska, Mississippi, and West Virginia. The average American spends $13,000 per year on personal health care. This is according to estimates from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, the U.S. lags behind several other wealthy nations on several measures, such as health care coverage, life expectancy, and disease burden. However, the U.S. has improved in giving more health care access for people in worse health, and health care cost growth has slowed somewhat.
A federal judge in South Florida is putting an end to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Kraft Heinz Food Company. A Miami-Dade County woman filed the suit late last year, claiming the company was misleading customers about how long it takes to prepare its Velveeta microwavable mac and cheese. The company was accused of violating federal law by saying the food takes 3.5 minutes to prepare, arguing it did not include the time it takes to remove the lid and add water. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival is coming back to Las Vegas.
September 22nd and 23rd at T-Mobile Arena.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
And starting Monday, you could win your way there.
Plus $1,000 spending cash.
Brought to you by T-Mobile. Experience more of the music you love with the record-setting 5G network. T-Mobile customers can unlock VIP benefits at the festival all weekend long. It's better over here. See why at T-Mobile.com/SEEWHY.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has great prices on everything you need for back to school. Right now, 2 pocket poly folders and an 8-pack of Staples No. 2 pencils are just 50 cents. Offer ends August 26. Pricing and limits may vary in-store and online. School on, save on at Staples.
on How Rude, Tanneritos, the Full House Rewatch podcast. Join characters Stephanie Tanner and Kimmy Gibbler, also known as actresses Jodie Sweetin and Andrea Barber, as they relive every episode of your favorite Friday night comfort show.
We spent our entire childhoods on a little show called Full House, playing frenemies, but becoming besties whenever the cameras weren't rolling. And now, 35 years later, it's our biggest adventure yet.
Listen to How Rude, Tanneritos on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
The Rod Ryan Show. It's the Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning. All of the once-in-a-lifetime events. All of the best free curated playlists. The best bands. All of the great podcasts for every interest.
The stuff they don't want you to know.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome.
All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media apps. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversation going on over there, some about the local things, which I do always appreciate, but of course, a lot on the news still coming out and breaking right now, among other things, about the national indictment of the former president. So the indictment itself having now been released out in a few ways, still haven't quite figured out how to put it over. Well, we'll see if we can put up the link here before too long from the AP on the actual document itself here. But in the meantime, a lot of other conversation and things going on, including, misconceptions do abound, including Louis Pinato saying that to the ignorant, a democracy is defined as two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we are not a pure democracy, nor are we a pure republic, because how do the representatives get elected? We are a majority rule, minority rights is one of the concepts that is often brought up, even if the whole minority rights part of it has often been a fickle idea to see implemented. But that's the point of it, that the majority rules, I mean, in this country, it could not be that if all of them decided that, we're going to eat you, that would be a violation of the minority rights, which is a important part of that concept there. But let's go ahead and get back to those comments and the calls right now. Again, the number to call if you want to get on the line that way, full up at the moment, but the number is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And we do have on the line with us right now Marco over in Central on the line. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
I'm sorry. Let me get someplace where we can hear each other a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Certainly.
But talking about Raul, he's really trying to make Donald Trump into Nelson Mandela. And some people are like, they're going to arrest him. I'm like, go for it. Arrest him. I mean, it's just blatant corruption. If people don't see what the Bidens are doing, I mean, look, I'm not going to say that these people shouldn't have done what they did in the U.S. Capitol, but I will state it like this. those people had a right to be angry. They had a right to disagree.
Sure.
And no, it wasn't pretty. And you know what? The left told us, they lectured us, that people destroying your buildings, destroying your cities, killing people, that's justice, because that's in the name of whatever Black Lives Matter or nonsense there is out there. And I'm not saying, again, there's no validity to these things. As human beings, we should all care for each other at all points. I don't want to give it a stupid label like Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. How about we all just care for each other? Because we only live once, and we should all look out for each other. But on a bigger point, I kind of want to address Frankie.
Oh,
Frankie, sure. Let me tell you what my qualifications are where you're concerned. ¿Qué te importa? Okay, it's none of your business. You live up there in Las Cruces, mind your own business up there. Maybe you can approach your city council and tell them, get more police officers. This way you guys aren't blowing each other away up there with rampant crime. And to Raul and Eric, you want to know what my qualifications are for mayor? I'll tell you what my qualifications are for mayor. Here it goes. I'm a United States citizen, and I'm a resident of El Paso. That's what gives me the ability to run for mayor. Regardless if they think, oh, you don't have $1 million? Oh, if you don't have $1 million, you can't run for mayor. Eric, Raul, I don't serve on the behest of those people. Well, let me tell you, let's talk about what has that brought us. People with luxurious acronyms at the end of their names, their PhDs, their MDs, and then all these people with money. Okay, let's start there. People with money. We had a perfectly fine city hall, right? And the city thought, hey, we should tear that down, build a stadium for a millionaire, and then we'll have him put a baseball team in there, and then he'll charge us. And then you know what's even the caveat on that? He'll make a stupid little image of a racist chihuahua. Congratulations. That's what your city did, while all in the backside stabbing the Tiguas in the back because they bought out the Diablos. That's your city. That's rich people. Okay. Greg Foster has money, and yet he gets a free stadium. How does that work? Hey, Greg, maybe you should buy this stadium. Here. While we're on Greg, let's talk about Greg. Greg owns the Crest building. Am I wrong about that? Greg Foster.
I thought it was Paul Foster, but
Paul Foster, Greg Foster, who knows what Foster? One of the Fosters, okay? He's a millionaire because Raul likes millionaires, okay? Mr. Foster has the Crest building, and you know what he wants to do? He wants to make a cafeteria, a food court. So people can go in there, pay him money, and then hopefully there'll be some business there. Hey, Mr. Foster, we'll address you that way. Mr. Foster, how about you put a Target there? How about you put a Walmart there? Because that would generate business till 11 o'clock. You could just have them put their dry goods in there. You don't even have them put their supermarket. Just like the Crest building used to be, right? Because we all remember the cafeteria, Target being there. That makes sense. But of course, what do I know? I'm a plebe. I'm a ne'er-do-well. I don't know anything because I'm not a millionaire. These people have all the money. I have just a little restaurant. We're struggling on, but these people know what they're doing. Let's talk about the people that serve this city, the workers of the city.
Sure.
You think, if you look, I guarantee you, if there was a way to gauge their morality, I bet you that their morality is probably not the highest. Why? You have a mayor who sits there, lies to the public while there's all these migrants on the corner street, and Brian Kilmeade's like, Mr. Mayor, you have out of control immigration problem. No, we don't. And they're like right there, all these people on this corner. And he just looks like a fool. Okay, that's your mayor right there. Obviously, he has all this money in the world. He's doing the best job he can. Then let's look at all the accolades that come with along all that. All these people that are super educated, right? Because us plebes, the ne'er-do-wells, the blue-collar citizens of El Paso obviously don't know what the hell we're doing. And we have to be led by these rich people, obviously. All the elites, all these smug people, right? Because that's how it works. No, well, let me tell you something, Eric. I'm running for the people to make things better for the people. Yeah, they may get in there and look at their pretty little things on their webpage, and oh my God, look at all this stuff. You know what's going to be on my webpage? That I worked for my family for 34 years to maintain a business. That I wanted to go to school, but guess what? I couldn't go to school because I was taking care of my family. I was taking care of my brother, my father, my mother, my kids. I was busting my tail every day, and I got sick and tired of the corruption. So you know what gives me the right? I, being a resident of El Paso and having enough of the nonsense, that's what gives me the right. And I'm sick and tired for the people. And my campaign, again, Marco for mayor, is going to be a campaign by, for the people. Not this nonsense, oh, let's see who can buy me off. That's not what I'm about. People are sick and tired of being taken advantage of, Raul, Eric. How about we stop and think of the people and how much they have to deal with the nonsense? Again, everybody, let's just remember we had a perfectly functioning city hall, but these people gave a millionaire a stadium for free. Hey, guys, you could have built a soccer stadium and got in the MLS down here. Again, what the hell do we know? We're only blue-collar workers.
I'll say this, that, again, I'm very much the whole idea of we the people. I mean, I think of it most often in that way because it's a part of a old Megadeth song. What do you mean I couldn't be the president of the United States of America? It's still we the people, right? So anyone saying that now there's no, I mean, there's a certain amount of, reality that unfortunately this modern day and age campaigns do take money, though I would say that the burden at the local level is a lot less. I mean, some of these most recent, what was it? Not city council, but school board elections were, in the couple of thousands of dollars. Like I want to say I saw 5 or maybe 10 as a high water mark there. Now, of course, definitely different scope, and the compensation that comes along with that position is significantly different in that that's a volunteer position that you have to get elected for effectively. But city council and of course the mayor is different here. But I will say that, I mean, of people saying that, well, you can't run. I mean, there are the technical definitions. And I mean, honestly, the barrier to run in El Paso is pretty low. And that's part of the reason I do think we find some crowded fields. I mean, again, there's some of the previous times, 2017 comes to mind when there were 8 candidates. And whether that's reasonable or not, I'll leave to the individual to decide on that. But to your larger point on the idea of protesting. I mean, the right to protest is, of course, ingrained within the Constitution and in the First Amendment, right to redress for wrongs, those kind of things. But I will say this, that there is no other circumstance that justifies other illegal circumstances, because someone was doing something that was also wrong and bad does not justify it for anyone else here. So, I mean, I get the frustration that you're talking about here, but there's not a whole lot of justification for individuals to do it as much as, I mean, yeah, the phrase exists out there, the riot is a language of the unheard. That does not mean that anyone, therefore, can get away with it or should be allowed to do so when it comes to the destruction of public, private property, livelihoods, etc. These are all condemnable and all should be, in my mind.
I agree, but I will say this. We have, as citizens, the right to go to our government and tell them when they're wrong.
Sure.
When they're wrong. We never talk. And you know what? Raul can say this is all going to come out in court. Great. Let it come out in court. We'll find out how many federal agents were there at that day. Okay? Because they tried to Reichstag people there. And let's see if people know what the Reichstag is. Go look at what the Reichstag is. Okay? That's what they tried to do with these people. I'm not saying it was right and it was wrong. But in the end, you know what's going to happen? Maybe Trump will get convicted. Maybe he won't. Let's say he's convicted. He'll appeal it. It'll go to the Supreme Court. Hello? He has the freedom of speech. That's what's going to happen. They're going to protect his freedom of speech as they did it with Edwards. And he did a lot worse. The gentleman who was running for president. And they were just like, no, man, you're completely overbound here. Every time they've done that, and by the way, the same person that went after Edwards is the same person going after Trump. So I strongly suspect all of this will be overturned. It's nothing but a spectacle. But in the meantime, be my guest. Make Donald Trump, Nelson Mandela, because that's what people are going to see. And I'll leave you with this. And every conservative out there, every person, screw it, every person, if you're sick and tired of being told what to do, never lead to violence, never. Because Gandhi said it best. First they make fun of us, then they ridicule us, then they attack us, and then we win. and we're going to win. The people are going to win.
Well, fair enough. Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thanks, Andrew. Have a beautiful day.
And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll take more calls, more comments, more of everything we do at this point during the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line that way is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Stop and go traffic remains on a portion of I-10 eastbound from Vinton to Red. 7-minute delays. Looking a lot better there, though. On the westbound side of I-10, Trans Mountain up to Vinton is a 5-minute delay for lane restrictions. Heavy traffic on the I-10 westbound, Paisano over to the Patriots, less than a 5-minute delay. And a crash reported eastbound North Loop Drive at Loma Land. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Signs, signs everywhere, signs. Signs for your business and signs for your ride. Sign Bros is the place where we make your signs.
Sign Bros is your source for vehicle wraps, window graphics, LED outdoor signs, and much more. 20 years in business locally. Call 855-8000, visit 1387 George Dieter, Suite C104, or go to signbrosep.com, where you don't pay for a sign pays for itself. Sign Bros.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
You could throw your flip-flop at a bug.
Ew, a bug, get it.
But the chances of actually hitting it
Over there.
are statistically
It's still alive.
unlikely. Good thing nature's got your back. Stem bug killers combine powerful active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and geraniol, and scientifically engineer them into effective bug-fighting formulas, safe for use as directed around people, pets, and throughout the home. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science.
There's your captain. Better buckle your seatbelts for this one. I saw my passport expired, so I went to Staples, got a passport photo lickety-split. While I was there, I grabbed some tiny travel soap and shampoo. I should have got some for my co-pilot. Just kidding, Brad.
Staples has everything for travel. 10-minute passport photos, luggage, headphones, even personal travel items. And now at Staples, get $10 off your purchase of $30 or more when you buy a travel service. Staples, your first stop to nonstop travel. Ends 9/16. In-store only. Exclusions apply.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Those dropping those likes and reacts that we always appreciate. I'm Brabanda, Ion Graham, Robbie Flores, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, Monica Cervantes, James Holmes, Ida Beza Gardner, Rick Reyes, and I'll say this one more lurking there. It doesn't show me the full list sometimes. And Angel Rueda, to appreciate that, as we have a lot of things going on, a lot of people chiming in, adding their 2 cents. So we appreciate all the algorithmic support. And of course, Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. You, of course, find them at 950 Crockett Street and right across I-10 from currently Sunland Park Mall. Assume that rebrand actually happens. But in any case, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram going to be there. Still going to be doing that, and they both buy and sell used cars. So see you there, and no dealer markups and no addendums. Come and check them out for the latest selection. Again, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. So a lot of other conversation going on, and we do have that link we were able to post up to the indictment from the Associated Press, the full, again, 45-page document. Want to say, yes, still. Okay, the search bar isn't doing me any favors right now, but I do believe that is the full thing as part of it. Yes, 45 pages in pretty well complete of all of them. So got a conversation going on that. We are, of course, taking those phone calls full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM, including also debates in the comments about, again, the constitutional republic or democratic republic or all those things. Listen, we are democratically elected constitutional republic. Anyone saying, well, I don't like those words because one includes Republican and the other includes Democrat, I need to get right the hell over that, because it's a nuh-uh type of argument that is just it's silly. Let's say that. We'll say that Buddy Vi is saying a freedom of speech is not without consequences. That is a legal concept that exists, having sat before the Supreme Court and covering some of their hearings and trials before, including the idea of, frankly, the standards. There is both fighting words and also just speech intended to cause harm, like the simple way it's put as saying fire in a crowded theater, saying that, well, I just shouted and everyone else panicked and trampled someone, that wasn't my fault, is not a reasonable thing to be said in court. Though I will say, again, the indictment, by my reading so far, the one coming out today, does not include that as particularly being said, but rather as a benefit expected to be coming for the former president based off of it and his on the way he chose to then deal with things, the aftermath. Not, again, directly of the actions on January 6th by my reading so far, though I'm willing to be proven wrong on that. But, well, there's a whole lot more coming out about that even as we've been on air here. So reviewing what I can, but I'm sure there will be more. But in any case, let's go back to those phone lines now. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'll be happy to prove you wrong. But before that, Marco, nobody says you don't have the right to run for mayor. You shouldn't be running because you're not qualified. And you're not qualified because you have no clue what a credible source of information is and have no intellectual honesty like most conservatives. You citing your white supremacist talking points about BLM to defend Trump's treasonous crimes like everyone on this station has conditioned you to is proof of this. And you have no clue what Trump was even indicted for, and you're blindly defending him. That's cult-like behavior and how traitors to the country reason. Like a grand jury looked at the evidence after years of the FBI investigating Trump's involvement in the insurrection on January 6th, and the grand jury looked at the evidence and chose to indict. The grand jury did. The grand jury looked at the evidence and chose to indict. And they chose to indict him for conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to obstruct the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election, conspiracy to impede the January 6th congressional proceeding, a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have that vote counted, and the obstruction of an attempt to obstruct and impede the certification of the electoral vote on January 6th. You all need to read the indictment, because everyone on this station has been lying to you about the January 6th hearings and what they prove, and they prove all of these things that he's been indicted for already. Read the indictment yourselves, because everyone on this station is going to purposely misinform you and obfuscate the evidence that exists, because the evidence is there. It was presented to the public during the January 6th hearings. We know he's guilty of trying to destroy democracy in our country, as these indictments specifically point out, that involving January 6th. And, this is the country's at we knew this day was coming, and if you refuse to watch the January 6th hearings and read the indictment and think, just taking the word of Sean Hannity and Alex Jones is sufficient, then you're a traitor to the country.
Okay, we're gonna we've indulged this for a minute here. So literally, before we even started talking, we posted up the link to the indictment because that's the part I would agree with you certainly on, about people needing to read and be informed about what is going on with this, and then all of the other mildly slanderous things we end up bringing up into this here, about including everyone in misinforming you, when even as you've been very active over in the comments, don't think I don't see that, about us saying, oh, we're ignoring this one. One of the first things we said coming out right out of the box here at the start of the show today was what those counts are. And of course, some of the response to it here, because if you're going to ignore what the person involved in the story is talking about, I would call that journalistic malpractice. But apparently you got your own standards going on here with this. So when it comes to this, I mean, this is a very serious set of charges that could come with penalties in their own rights. Again, I mean, talking about some of the larger things, the replacement elector plot part of it, I think, is probably one of the more significant things, because, I mean, and sure, that was talked about during the January 6th hearings, the part that I've kind of been focused the most on here, but we have very different methods that we end up going about this pretty much every time, has been about, okay, but will from actually the events of that day there be any charges? And to essentially, by my reading of this, there is no direct charges of essentially, well, the attack on the Capitol, the riot that ended up happening. I mean, there's essentially parts about towards fomenting it, but without some of those kind of expected parts of the indictment towards the idea of surrection or indeed in treason on its own, notably absent from this particular indictment, as the special prosecutor who did also speak while we've been on air here today. So I'm sure we'll have more of that as we get through the rest of this. I mean, you have to agree with me that the insurrection charges or treason are not a part of this document, right?
Yeah, the events of January 6th are part of the indictment in very clear terms. Obstruction to prevention of obstructing a congressional process to approve the certification. The certification happened on January 6th. So you're already sweeping Trump's treasonous crimes under the rug.
Okay, let's try this again. I know you don't like answering questions because it means that you're giving something to someone else, which is a more of your problem than of mine. But treason and or insurrection are not part of the charges in this document, right?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
Sure thing. Treason and or insurrection are not part of the actual counts that are being presented as part of this. I mean, we've read these counts multiple times, conspiracy, obstruction, conspiracy to obstruct, etc. But treason or insurrection are not a part of this, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if that's a law that he could be charged with, but what he was charged with is treasonous by any definition. It's the destruction of our democracy, trying to steal an election, like what the January 6th hearings proved that you didn't watch.
You're going to keep pulling that old yarn here. Listen, if you have the time to go through and, well, doing a local radio show, watch every second of those as opposed to seeing the major points brought up and reviewing the evidence, hey, you know, that you do you. But let's just put it this way, that, again, you don't like the former president. I understand that entirely. You're entirely entitled to your opinions on this, but there are certain facts that do have to be recognized with this. And also that if you just want the former president to go away forever, I would say this one's a bit more powerful than any of the, say, document allegations and indictments that have been brought down in that way. But I'm not sure this is going to have that sum total effect you're looking at. Again, you keep expecting people to maybe change their mind, at very least some of the goals you have put forth of wanting people to be educated by pounding on them and calling them all in aggregate traitors, and that everyone who has even any idea along the lines of something you disagree with as being a bad person and inherently wrong. Again, very curious to know how that's working out for you in your personal life, though I know you won't answer that question. But point is that, frankly, from the immediate aftermath of this, I mean, yes, there'll be the indictments. Yes, there'll be the things that are going to have to go into him appearing in court on Thursday as the next expected thing. Going to be probably a similar, my expectation, a similar-ish process to what happened with it. We came down to the final actual, arraignments and things happening with the document mishandling charges that he is also facing. But if you think that this is therefore going to, wipe him off the slate, again, that comes down to a misunderstanding, in my opinion, of the support that the former president did have and still to this point enjoys, because he, of course, is leading in the polls. And you think that this will be the one that finally, that this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back and will remove his support from him. Again, that would be a misunderstanding in my mind of it. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. I appreciate your somewhat willingness to actually talk about something and answer a question as opposed to just saying y'all are bad. But we'll continue on with this and the other things and also the local aspects, certainly. But we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more on this and more on, of course, as much as is possible, the local things. But in any case, if you want to get on that line, of course, the number to do so and available right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
From the CBS 4-1 Weather Center, this is meteorologist Evan O'Regan. Well, our double-digit cool down was rather short-lived. We did hit the century mark for a high temperature yesterday afternoon, and we have triple digits in the forecast for the next 7 days. So it looks like we're going to start another triple-digit streak here in the Sun City. We also have a 20% chance of rain showers and storms in the afternoon to talk about Tuesday through Thursday this week. From the CBS 4-1 Weather Center, this is meteorologist Evan O'Regan.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Just seeing one accident on your El Paso roadways right now. Northbound George Dieter at Rojas with El Paso police on the scene. I-10 eastbound Vincent to Red, 13-minute delays, road work and lane restrictions all the way down. I-10 westbound is slow from Paisano over to the Patriot. And Global Reach southbound, 25-minute delays from Liberty Expressway down to Montana. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Temperatures for your Wednesday on the hotter side, once again around 101. Still a 20% chance of a storm tomorrow. Then we start to dry things out a little more. Partly cloudy, only a 10% chance of a storm for your Thursday. Hotter as well, high 103. Then we go back to weather warn for our Friday. Partly cloudy skies, 10% chance of a storm, high 106 on Friday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has what you need for travel. Passport photos, luggage, headphones, even personal travel-sized items. Now get $10 off your purchase of $30 or more when you buy a travel service. In-store only offer ends September 16th. Exclusions apply. Staples, your first stop to nonstop travel.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and superior protection. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Let's talk about good feet. Do you have good feet, or do you have tired, sore, or painful feet? Or maybe you even have pain in your hip, knees, or back, and you suspect it's coming from your feet. Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet store. With over 200 stores across the country, the Good Feet store has accumulated thousands of 5-star reviews from people who struggle with problems just like these. You might ask, how do you get all those great positive reviews? Well, it may sound a little old-fashioned, but 5-star reviews come from our commitment to providing 5-star service. That's why we offer a lifetime warranty on all arch supports and a free fitting and test walk. You can try before you buy. So you've got nothing to lose. Stop in today and see what the Good Feet store can do for you.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Sandal season is here, and Good Feet fits into all your summer shoes, even flip-flops.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, adding their 2 cents, including Gary De Leon saying, now I have to vote for Trump. I would feel bad if Raul couldn't complain about Trump. I mean, that's not the reason I would put forth for voting, as opposed to like sincerely held beliefs, personal interest, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I haven't been on the soapbox for a minute. Just want people to go and vote. So at a certain point, it's like, all right, whatever your reason, as long as you're going to the polls and proving to the people in charge that we're paying attention, maybe at a certain point I will take it. But also other discussion going on about primary voting and plans going on with that, and also being asked specifically, I guess people get frustrated sometimes. Raul asking if, do I like the former president or what? Frankly, my opinions on him personally are kind of irrelevant. I mean, I know I call my shot on occasion, but going back to 2016, back when I was, in TV and doing those kind of things, with a lot of stuff swirling around him, the primaries, the whole process. And there was a whole lot of people thinking, well, he'll never get through. He'll never end up making it. So he's almost not worth talking about, the former president that is. And oh boy, did that not work out. And you want to talk about aging poorly. That didn't work out because, again, it's a misunderstanding of the support network that he has. Again, I often bring up Michael Dukakis, who from one goofy tank ride that then had some, by my understanding, it's a pretty simple ad, just has the tank ride footage and a bunch of text laid over it, but that was then put out by the George H.W. Bush campaign as he likes to ride around in a tank. Isn't that cute? Here's all the things he's done that don't support that kind of a thing. And he was done. He was over with. Kaput. Political career. I mean, he doesn't even had such a peep out of him since then. Or at least not in the national scale anyway. So, I mean, that used to be closer to the standard, right? That you could prove one thing, one bad, or one like, okay, this guy's weird. And that person would disappear, frankly, forever. Unless, I mean, like, sure, you got your Ross Perot's out there, but he was a fluke in his own right. And you want to talk about a pseudo vanity project and the millions required, or billions, frankly, at that level. Sure. Different things. Definitely not an apples to apples comparison. But again, whether you like or you don't like the guy, misunderstanding of the way that he has come to be in power and still hold the sway that he does it's just not reasonable. It's not going to serve you well. I will say that because, I mean, a whole lot of people, I remember being shocked as hell election night 2016 and thinking, what the hell? How did this happen? Because one of the things was a lot of people thinking, okay, well, he's not going to be able to meet the traditional, power structure needs. And that is also, again, the previous times, because from the, kind of general public view, it kind of seemed like there was a few times that Donald Trump surfaced, particularly after The Apprentice ended, right? That he would come up a few times. There was, some of his, other scandals, some of his business dealings, the birtherism, all those kind of things. But those were just the times when it was more publicly available. And it frankly was more like, not quite an iceberg moment, but like a whale breaching the surface. Doesn't mean it's not swimming along and having its own momentum that whole time, just when it became more available. And that's part of the reason that there was a whole lot of politicians, including those that were opposed to him previously and arguably are now again, such as he's been in the news much lately, Mitch McConnell, saw him not, I would say he wasn't exactly an ally of the former president, but rather saw him as useful to his own ends. But whether or not that totally worked out, and there's a whole lot of people, including Steve Bannon is another example I use, who was, I wouldn't say was totally a stan of the former president from the beginning, but thought like, oh, okay, he's talking about stuff that I like, therefore I'll hitch my wagon to that star for the moment. And whether that worked out for any of these people involved is certainly up for debate, and there's a whole lot of analysis that could be done there. But again, misunderstanding it is not going to serve you well, or frankly the conversation overall. So let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines right now. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
This is absolutely hilarious. I heard Marco getting on my case because I want to comment about him running for mayor in El Paso, and just because I'm from Messia, not Las Cruces, Marco, I'm in marvelous vicinity. He gets on my case that I don't have anything to say about it. What is this nonsense? I can talk about Bismarck, North Dakota. I can talk about Seattle, Washington. I can talk about London. I can talk about any place in the world, for crying out loud. Now, let me say this. Marco, listen to me. There's this great actor, Clint Eastwood. He played the part of Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry said, a man needs to know his limitations. Another one. And this guy, what's his name? Kenny Rogers, right? You got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him.
Sure.
Marco, you come up and say, just because you're the United States citizen and live in El Paso and have a restaurant qualifies you to run for mayor? Wait a minute, Marco. You know what? Where you're going, I'll tell you what. You remind me of a person that goes to a mathematics symposium with a bunch of PhDs and you could barely make it out of arithmetic. You need to come up with more heft, Marco. Other than that, you're going nowhere. Now, I will say this, Marco, credit to you, because it does take balls to get out there, your face, amongst all the 800,000 people in El Paso and put yourself out there in front. I will give you that credit. But you got to know, again, your limitations. That's what my opening comment.
Fair enough. And again, let's just say that, yes, anyone can run, but I did also say at the time, and it still applies, that there is certain logistical concerns, because I'm not saying that money is the key thing for a campaign, but it sure makes it hell a lot easier now, doesn't it? I mean, at the local level, there's varying degrees. And I will say that if you want to look at the qualifications of, say, our current mayor, would be along the lines, okay, in terms of sheer just like what it comes into it. I mean, he was a local business owner, longtime resident. Now, I would say that the scope of the businesses, not being fully familiar with Marco's, is a little bit different. And of course, there's civic involvement and stuff like that. And I would say in general, people going straight to the top of the ballot, whether it be locally, statewide, nationally, is a problem, and something that I don't know has served us very well necessarily in the city of El Paso. But I mean, still the just stated and statutory requirements to run in El Paso are what they are and what he has elaborated on. And then I would say what the real difference ends up coming, at least for me anyway, is then on platform. Because if you have I've done all of these great things, and now I want to demolish everyone's houses in order to put it all into high-rise condominiums that you can go back buy again. I don't care what that person's qualifications are. I would be unhappy with personally that idea of it. So that's why, more than anything else, we end up coming down to policy.
I'm talking to Andrew. Stop.
So that's part of my idea when it comes down to the qualifications, or more the platform. I fall more on the platform side of things.
Well, let me say. Back in my younger days, when I used to be a gambler, and we used to play poker, and it would be table stakes, and you'd have to show up with 10, 15, 20,000 bucks.
Sure.
You show up at the table with 5, you're not even going to get a seat, for crying out loud. Now, again, I don't want to beat up on Marco that bad, but listen, more power to him. He wants to run. He has this. He does have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The pizzazz, the energy,
chutzpah,
because for whatever reason he's saying. But you got to come up to the plate with more, Marco, than the fact that you're an El Paso resident, a U.S. citizen, and you run a restaurant. That's not going to make it. Hello?
I get what you're saying here, and there's really two major ways it seems people can approach really any level of elected office. I would say the bar is, again, a little bit lower at the local, at least in terms of the monetary aspect, but you either have to have money, the ability to fundraise money, so let's call it that section 1 and 1A and 1B about having the money, or you run it grassroots, right? You run it as we're going to, often the phrase they use, challenge the establishment, change things from the ground up, and so you galvanize people, but you got to have something involved, whether it be the money or the people. And that's where, again, I would say that having a platform that supports it is pretty important.
Well, I hear everything you're saying. Marco, I'm cheering you on only for the sake that you are participating in the democratic process. I'm for you on that. And I'm not beating up on you in the sense that you're a terrible person. I'm just saying the reality of how things work in modern society, when you're running for office, you've got to come up with more than what you are just offering. Now, having said that, one last thing. I am absolutely ecstatic that the Donnie Dotar doofus has now, I think this is his second or maybe third indictment. I'm so excited.
Second federal.
About that. And I'm going to talk to you about that somewhere during the part of the week. But anyway, congratulations, Marco. I hope it works for you. But I just don't see how you're going to pull this out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, analysis can differ on that, and we'll see what happens with it. But do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay, Andrew, you take care.
All right, I think we got time to squeeze in at least one more call before we hit the end of the hour here. Squeeze in what we can. We do have Barbara calling in from Cloudcroft right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few topics I want to talk about. About the city, I'm glad that they're doing away with the gas cards.
Oh, that too.
Mm-hmm. Have them submit an expense report. They should do, I don't know why they're even considering an allowance. I mean,
right.
They should even stop those trips to where? Didn't Schwarzbein go to Israel? And Hernandez and her husband went somewhere, I don't know if it was Europe. I mean, ridiculous. Have them pay their own way. Why should the taxpayers pay it? And the next thing I wanted to talk about was Hunter. I mean, everybody is excited about the Trump indictment. Is anybody surprised? Aren't you guys tired of being ecstatic and high on drugs or whatever you take every time you hear the word Trump indictment or Trump guilty or Trump this or that? Nobody should be excited and nobody should be surprised, should I say. It was expected, and anybody who didn't expect it must have their head under a rock. But regarding Hunter, you know, I ran a small business, and my son worked in the business with me. And whenever my son was talking with a client or customer, and I needed to participate in the conversation, he would conference me in, and we didn't talk about the sun and the moon and the stars. It was about sealing a deal. It was about making sure that the contract, the stipulations, and everything in that contract were agreeable with everybody. It was a win-win situation. And this idea that Biden could be called some 20 different meetings that Hunter had with his clients, and Biden didn't say anything or was just sitting there. How dumb do they really think the American public is? How many of you listeners have ever received 150 suspicious activity reports filed against you for over $50 million? And how many listening have ever heard a foreign adversary say, oh, they'll never find the money because we sent to so many banks, it's going to take them 10 years to figure out where we sent the money. This is the Biden family, but you don't hear the outrage. These people put a president in office. I call him a squatter. I don't even believe he's there legitimately. Who's compromised? Who is compromised? I mean, look what he's doing with Russia. They fly these surveillance balloons and they just, China. And they're always threatening us. And everything is okay. You know, it's peachy. They steal our intellectual property. They have police stations throughout the United States. They buy our property. And these guys are worried about an indictment. It still has to go to trial, guys.
True.
And this guy, Jack Smith, read his history. Read the guy's history. He's not impartial in anything he does. Read what he did with Lois Lerner. Read about his wife. These people are hatchet people that the Biden administration and anybody in there, when you hear a new person coming in, they're not new. They're just as crooked as they are. And so I just say, go ahead and be ecstatic about these indictments and stuff. There's still a lot to prove. And, Jonathan Turley, the George Washington professor, said that, and I'm quoting him, that the peddling scheme is shaping up to be one of the greatest corruption scandals in the history of Washington. I haven't listened to the radio in a while because I've been out of town. I've been traveling and stuff, so I haven't had access to your show, Andrew. But, when a professor can say that about what's going on at the presidential level, and I haven't even had an opportunity to listen to the news media, but I'm sure the liberal media doesn't mention anything about the corrupt Biden family. I just don't understand how we can still have callers like, yes, I do understand. The three that you normally call, Eric and the Frankie and Raul, they never change their tune. So many things in the world are changing, but these three don't. It's just amazing to hear them after 2-3 months of being off the radio. I call in and 3 back to back today, and it's like, wow, they're still at square A. It's like people have to grow and mature in their lives, and I don't see that here. And it just surprises me. And then again, it doesn't. That, Andrew, I have to tell you, those esteemed legal analysts, you need to pay attention to them. They have got and went to law school and earned their doctors of jurisprudence, and they remember it well. And I'm sure they study the law books every day so they can get on your program and comment about the indictment.
Let's just say that, I mean, we do have guests, and we do usually talk about their qualifications or reasons we're talking with them, as we will do a little bit later this week. This is kind of our Monday this week, but I'll just say this. We take on a lot of opinions here. We don't really do call screening a traditional way, like we get people's names and how to refer to them, what side they're calling from, but we don't do a, hey, what do you want to talk about kind of thing. We may or may not do that in the future, depending on, frankly, the technology available to us and the flow of conversation, the hours that we have, those kind of things. But I will say this. There's a lot of different opinions out there on this, but knowing some of the facts and background things, the reason that we posted up the actual indictment itself and what comes from it, as was done by the grand jury in this case. But we'll keep talking about that. But I do appreciate you calling in and talking about some of the local things, the other national things here. But we got to take that next break right now. We're actually get towards the end of the show. So I do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew. You too. Bye.
All right. And with that, in fact, we're basically out of time here for this program. So I think we'll have to leave it there for today. So I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. If you want to talk about the things primarily locally, but yeah, we did. I mean, with some very important national things going on, we do sometimes have to have deference to that. So we'll go ahead and take that. We'll have to end the show there for today. So I do want to thank everyone that, again, participated. If you want to talk about and be a part of the things that are going on here in the borderland, we'll do that as we do usually every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. More with live interviews.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash on the I-10 eastbound at the Las Muchas exit has caused even longer delays. I-10 eastbound has got 20-minute delays from Vinton down to Red, blocking the right lane. Stay to the left to get by. That slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound also through downtown Cotton over to the Hunter Viscount exit, 10-minute delays. And it's stop and go southbound on Global Reach from Liberty Expressway down to Montana, 20-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Audible. Boost your imagination with Audible. Listen to the biggest selection of audio entertainment, from celeb memoirs to motivation and more. Audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. There's more to imagine when we listen. Sign up for a free trial at audible.com.
In this week's Marketers Report, we hear about the importance of local radio from Allison Griffin, head of marketing at State Farm.
iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that is local, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, trusted influencers, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
There are choices that can change your life.
Like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45.
It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms.
But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it.
And there's even better news. You have screening options.
Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options, or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the Shades of Summer sale, July 28th through August 7th, and get 35% off paints and stains with prices starting at $28.92. That means 35% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, get 35% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
There's a right way and a wrong way to fight off mosquitoes. Karate chopping the air in a public place in front of your kids and their friends, Mom, is the wrong way. Using STEM mosquito repellent is the right way. STEM effectively repels mosquitoes by harnessing active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and peppermint, making it safe for use as directed around people and pets. STEM, rooted in nature, optimized by science, and embarrassment-free.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.